Welcome to the Voice of Retail podcast. My name is Michael LeBlanc, and I am your host. This podcast is produced in conjunction with Retail Council of Canada. Meet Emily Hosie, founder and CEO of Toronto-based Rebelstork. Emily recognized a massive void in the baby retail market ripe for innovation. She leveraged her experience at TJX and Saks Off Fifth as a top buyer, building an AI-powered platform for Overstock, open box, and quality used baby gear. Rebelstork has saved over 150,000 pieces of baby gear from ending up in landfill, and she is just getting started. Emily, welcome to the Voice of Retail podcast. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm fine. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thanks for joining me. Where am I finding you today? It's Toronto-based business. I'm in Mississauga. Where are you?
I am sitting in our Toronto Returns ReCommerce facility.
Fantastic. Well, listen, you and I almost crossed paths at the big Elevate show. I couldn't make it, but thanks to the powers of the internet, you and I get to chit and chat in the microphone after the event. I'd love to get your impressions of the event. But first of all, who are you? What do you do? Tell us about yourself. What's your background? I see some great retail in your background, Holtz and TJX. And, what do you do today? What do you do for a living?
First and foremost, the most important job that I have is that I am a millennial mom to a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, but I'm also the founder and CEO of Rebelstork. We are considered the largest baby gear liquidator and returns recommerce platform across North America. So Rebelstork was built from my own personal life experience. I believe that the best baby gear can be attained at the best value, so that parents and kids can live their best life. And to ensure premium value for all parents, I built a marketplace that connects brands, retailers, and parents. We harness the baby gear industry's first and only instant AI-powered ReCommerce pricing technology. And we named her Rev. We made her a girl. And we are the first driven baby gear marketplace created for a new generation of parents, Gen Z and millennials. And we're the only B Corp certified company in the baby gear recommerce category, and we're really proud of that. So we built custom in-house technology, ingesting baby gear liquidation by the truckload. We can quality inspect every item that comes through our returns recommerce processing facilities. We take unique photos of every single item that comes in before it gets listed on our platform, and we can list thousands of unique SKUs per day. So because of our technology, we are considered a tech company. Parents across North America, across Canada, and the United States can trust that they are always receiving the most credible baby gear at the best values when they shop on rebelstork.com.
Well, so many questions, but let me start with one question. Let's talk more about you. You started, it seems like you had a great, before you were doing what you're doing today, you were in the retail business. Did you always want to be in retail? Sometimes it's described as the accidental career. How did you find your way into the retail space?
So retail I'm obsessed with retail, all forms of retail, all channels of retail. I always knew that I wanted to start my own company eventually, but knew that I had to get a lot of experience at the best companies before I felt comfortable to do it. So I did spend my entire career working at the best off-price retailers in the world. I was the VP of merchandising for the Saks Off Fifth division of Saks Fifth Avenue. And then later, I was the VP of merchandising for the TJX companies, which, as you know, is the largest off-price retailer in the world. When I was pregnant with my first child, I was wondering where the TJ Maxx for baby gear was, and I couldn't find it. I really love the deal, and I started digging into specifically where the returns in the baby gear industry were going, as well as where just excess inventory was being sold in this industry. And I was so sad when I discovered that this industry, for the most part, throws returns and excess stock into landfills. Many reasons for that, which maybe made sense decades ago.
Safety, right? A little bit of concern over safety and liabilities, right?
Safety, liabilities, just operations. And it's a distraction from a full price business to deal with your returns.
Sure.
And so it was disheartening to learn that millions of units of brand new, never used, just open boxed items in this space that were perfectly resaleable were going to the waste. So that was really how the company began. It's evolved a lot. we're 4 years old, and we're a 4-year-old company, 4 years old in Canada, and just under 2 years old since launching in the US. Mm-hmm. And today we have over 270 brand and retail partners. We've saved with them over 180,000 units of baby gear from going into landfills. Wow. And we operate 3 quite large returns ReCommerce facilities, 2 in the United States, so one in Brooklyn, New York, the other just outside of Nashville in Lebanon, Tennessee. And then where I'm sitting right now is our one in Toronto, Canada.
Well, you've had quite a trajectory of growth. Talk about that for a little bit. I just want to stick on the company. So you're North American scale, 2 years in the US, 4 years here. It's obviously, one of my questions typically is, what makes the company different? But you're kind of articulating it now that there wasn't quite, I guess it was kind of fragmented, right? You'd go to the neighborhood store, and then there's neighborhood stores around that would be doing what you're doing kind of on a very small scale. But I'm not even sure they were taking open box stuff that you were. Maybe that was going through another B channel. Did you come across any of it? And who backed you on this great trajectory of growth? Do you position yourself as a tech company or a retail company or a sustainability company? Your B Corp? So many questions. Where do you want to start?
I think what primarily makes us different is that our primary business is returns ReCommerce, and that wasn't a thing. That was just it wasn't a business in the baby gear space. So when you mention neighborhood stores, there's a lot of resale used product consignment stores. That's been around for, decades and decades and decades, and forever, is having a resurgence now with, all the talk of sustainability. But in terms of like working directly with brands and retailers to give them a platform to be able to not throw their returns in the garbage, we pioneered that in this industry. We really are a B2B business that then turns around. The B2B funds our B2C, if that makes sense. So we're working with brands and retailers to then provide a B2C to parents across North America.
So you're like a platform, in other words. Retail is a platform. So would you do white label for them, or them being other retailers, if we just wanted to follow that thread for a little bit? So a retailer would send those to you versus a manufacturer, and then they would be, or you would be selling to their customers via white label? Or talk a bit more about the business model.
Yeah, so our business is liquidation and returns ReCommerce for the most part. But our brand is Rebelstork.com. And so our brand is our demand channel where parents can go to purchase this liquidated product. So in the United States, it's Rebelstork.com US. In Canada, it's just Rebelstork.com. Both sites are operated completely differently because there's completely different legalities and safety requirements for baby gear in each country. And so we work with the brands and the retailers on their returns and their excess product. And then it goes through our technology, which is, we have all custom technology on the back end that allows us to ingest baby gear liquidation by the truckload, pre-populate the listings, do initial safety vetting and approval, all through the tech. Our technology prices everything. And then there's a secondary check that's happening by all of our associates that do it are all child passenger safety technician trained. And the product goes live on the site and parents are able to purchase it.
Well, there's two kind of themes here. As is typical these days, you can't talk about retail without saying AI. It's right in the letters. Did you, when you conceived of the genesis of the business was obviously this marketplace opportunity, as you're articulating it, right? No one was doing what you're describing, but did the AI component and the tech to make it efficient come along in conjunction, or it was like, this business model doesn't work until I make it very sophisticated on the back end to, as you describe, ingest and classify and do all those things? Were the two in conjunction with each other, or did you come to the realization the business model wasn't going to work that well without some pretty high-tech stuff going on?
So the business always had our pricing engine, Rev, which I mentioned before. So that was always kind of the center of the business to begin with, but nobody really knew about her because she was just working behind the scenes, pricing the product on our platform and making sure that we were always at matching supply and demand on a pricing side so that we could move through the product. We're only a good partner to our brands and retailers if we're moving through the product. We're not a very good partner if the product's just sitting in our facilities, not turning. So the AI pricing technology was always there from the get-go. And then she's just been learning and advancing. We release Rev 4.0 at the end of this quarter. And just every kind of quarter, we have an engineering team that's working just on Rev. And she's always advancing and more demand metrics that are coming into play. And then that was the beginning. So there was always tech associated with the business. But it was like tech that maybe the average person wouldn't know was being used. But as we started scaling, we knew that in order for us to be able to handle the volumes and the daily volumes, and each SKU is unique for the most part, we had to build the infrastructure to be able to do it, or else you just wouldn't be able to get through the volume of product that needs to be listed and fulfilled on a daily basis.
Let's talk about the Elevate conference. You were on the stage. What were you talking about?
That was a lot of fun. So we hosted our very first masterclass at the Elevate conference. It was awesome. We had the opportunity to talk about creating a business that connects profit and sustainability. And as a certified B Corporation, we are empowering parents, brands, and retailers to participate in the e-commerce economy and helping build a more sustainable world for our next generation. So it was really fun to be able to, look out into the audience of other groups of entrepreneurs and business owners who are looking to make their good mark on the world and just share how we've been able to do it, and kind of give tips, but also take questions. It's not easy to build a company that is balancing both purpose and profit. And, being B Corp was something that right from the get-go, I think when I bought the domain for Rebelstork.com, I also immediately put my name down to learn about the criteria for B Corp. So it was something really important for us, and we've been able to build the company alongside the B Corp principles. But it's not an easy thing to do, and I think it was a great opportunity for us to be able to encourage others that it is possible. We're doing it. It's possible.
Yeah. Question for you. When I often talk about, I mentioned off mic, I was interviewing folks at a sustainability conference not too long ago. And I interview a lot of people who, one way, shape, or another, that sustainability is a part of their brand ethos. And there always does seem to be a little bit of a paradox with particularly younger customers, I guess soon to be your customers, or perhaps just becoming your customers, so to speak. With, you have some retail platforms, direct from China retail platforms, that are the opposite of sustainability, but they're, exceptionally popular. How do you square that circle in your mind with, are you getting a segment of the customers who care about that? And do you think there's growth opportunity, or does that present a risk to you that, when the economy turns a bit tough, that people start to lose their passion for the sustainability element of their shopping?
We do a Rebelstork baby gear ReCommerce report every single year. So we published our third annual this past February, I believe. And the Gen Z consumer is more in tune with needing and wanting sustainability as one of their purchasing priorities than any other generation. And it's quite drastic the way that it's shifted. Where we are right now, I do feel that if it's convenient and you can make it easy, then it's going to work. But if there's any sort of, there's effort involved to be sustainable, or effort involved that makes it slightly more inconvenient, then I think we're still not necessarily there yet as a society. But I think every single generation, it gets more and more important, and it becomes a must-have when they're picking who to support from a retail standpoint, as well as what brands they're purchasing.
Let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about the funding environment in Canada, because that's on both sides of the border. Actually, I did an interview not too long ago with some venture capital folks, and we were just talking about the funding environment and the situation where it is a big show me kind of environment. In other words, there's not a lot of long, big bets being placed. Is that your experience? Are you finding funding, particularly as a female entrepreneur, that you're a small subset, unfortunately, in the VC community? What's your experience been like?
First off, I think fundraising for every founder is challenging. Like if it was easy, we'd all be doing it. I think unfortunately as a female and even more specifically as a mom, it's a lot more complicated. I'm quite passionate about the subject because we've been able to do it. But it has not been the easiest at the beginning. But I think we talk about strides being made to support female founders, but the reality is still pretty frustrating. And in 2023, I think it was companies founded solely by women garnered just 2% of total capital invested in VC-backed startups.
Incredibly small. But it's frustrating in retail because, as you think about who the shopper is, the predominantly, it's like 98-2, like it's predominantly female. So it is a topic that comes up quite frequently, and many would share your frustration. Do you think it's getting better? I mean, you've been at this for 4 or 5 years. Do you think there's been improvements? Lots of big talk. I'm not sure how much action there is, but what's your perspective?
I think that at the end of the day, if you can build a compelling business with good unit economics, you will get funded. If you're relentlessly resourceful and you just keep going. I don't know if you've heard this story yet, but I completed the first partner pitch that ended up leading one of our first raises. I had gone into labor, like my water had broken and I refused to cancel the call. So I just sat on a beach towel and did the pitch. And that was who ended up leading our round. So at the end of the day, your business is looked at, and it's looked at through a big magnifying glass. Every nook and cranny is viewed. And, if you're doing something that is different, and if you do have good unit economics and a great team, then you get funded. And I have to say the funding, since we've got momentum, the first couple of years were hard to raise capital, but it's never easy, but it's a lot different than it was for us since then. Yeah.
And let's talk about lessons learned along the journey. So in the kind of the frame as advice for founders like yourself, maybe someone's listening and they're in the process or they dream of the process as you did. And let's frame this in 2 starts and 1 stop, 2 things they should start doing if they want to get funding, get their business going, or accelerate their business. And one thing that they should stop doing, maybe you tried it and it didn't work, or it used to work and it doesn't work. What's your advice?
So, there's the advice, I guess, is what I did. So I thought that it was really important that if I wanted to start a business I had to get the best skill set that I could possibly have. And I needed to fill my toolbox full of knowledge and become an expert across different verticals, specifically in retail, to be able to have the know-how to be able to do it. So I did make a list of companies right after university that I wanted to work for. And I was particular about even the leaders that I wanted to work under. And I did spend a lot of time networking and surrounding myself with mentors who are true visionaries that I could learn from. So I feel like that was number 1, is I got really great experience under people that were pushing the needle and doing things differently and encouraged me to think differently as well.
So what doesn't work? What should folks not do or stop doing?
One thing that I have learned that I have to never do is I have to make sure that I'm remaining very focused on the Rebelstork path and the path for my team. And if you really do stay focused on these are the things we must achieve and just narrow in, heads down, it's really quite remarkable what you can achieve. What you really can't do is really can't be distracted by counting other people's sprinkles, because then your ice cream will melt. So we really do keep our heads down. We are in our own lane. We do not announce our raises. We're very humble, like just heads down and build this thing and be a great partner to the brands and retailers that we work with, and, ship the product that the customers are purchasing. And that's really kind of the two things that I would say have been the most important.
Well, it's a great story, well told. Last thing, any advice for the retailers listening about ReCommerce? Maybe they're not, maybe they may or may not be in your commodity, but what are the kind of lessons you've learned or advice you'd like to share for retailers listening about how they think about ReCommerce and doing the things that keep products out of landfills?
If a company can have a decision to become more sustainable or do more sustainable business practices, I think absolutely that needs to happen. But one thing that I would say is, don't try to do it yourself. ReCommerce is a complicated business, and it can be distracting. It can be, what we just talked about. And there's partners that you can find who are best in class. I think that we're best in class for baby gear, but be clear about your goals and pain points, and then let your partner do what they do best so that you can remain focused on your full price evolution. I think where companies or big retailers can stumble is when they're trying to take their current resources to try and figure out ReCommerce on their own, and then they see that they're not evolving, their full price business or the business that actually keeps the lights on.
How do people get in touch with you? Are you a LinkedIn person? And what's the best way to keep up with what you're doing?
Mm-hmm. So, we're kind of everywhere. You can find more about us on rebelstork.com. We love connecting with our community. From our website, you can sign up for our emails. You can also follow us on Instagram, TikTok. We're on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. The company's on LinkedIn. The team is on LinkedIn. We call our community the flock, because, it suits Rebelstork. And we have a very loyal flock community of expecting and new parents across North America. And we try to listen to them. We share behind the scenes of what building this company looks like. We love hearing from you guys and would love to hear from you too.
Well, fantastic. Well, listen, you're a busy person coming up onto a busy season. So thanks again for making time to speak with the Voice of Retail podcast. Real treat to get to know you and your business a little bit. And I wish you much continued success. And once again, thanks for joining me on the pod.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Voice of Retail. If you haven't already, follow on your favorite podcast platform so new episodes will land automatically each week. And be sure and check out my other retail industry media properties, the Remarkable Retail Podcast with Steve Dennis and the Global eCommerce Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc, Senior Retail Advisor, Keynote Speaker, Rethink Retail 2023 Global Top Retail Influencer. If you want more content or to chat, follow me on LinkedIn. Safe travels, everyone.